What is going on, everyone, and welcome to r/entitled parents. Now, today's first post is a bit of a mad one. In it, an entitled parent tries to steal gifts that are meant to be donated to kids in hospital at Christmas. It doesn't get any worse than that, does it? Well, let's get straight into the story. Oh, but wait! First of all, if you aren't subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing. I'm trying to hit 600,000 by the end of 2020 to round off such a terrible year with a little bit of a highlight. So yeah, if you are new around here, hit the button. It's free. You can always unsubscribe later. And if you do go on to enjoy this video, it would be massively appreciated. Let's get into it. Entitled mum thinks she is more deserving than a children's hospital. This happened last Wednesday, and it's been on my mind ever since. I just don't understand how people can be so awful. I live near a children's hospital in the UK, and they do donation drives occasionally to try and get nice things for the kids. My partner and I had just got a new video game console, and so our old one was collecting dust. We thought that since it was close to Christmas, why not donate it? Do something nice. So, we go to the hospital, having filled out a form telling us when to hand it in. They're being strict due to COVID, and unfortunately, there was a mix-up with this form. We had filled it in for a different hospital and weren't allowed to queue to hand it in on that day due to infection control. A bit annoying, but never mind. We rebooked for the next day and turned to leave. Enter entitled mum. She was behind us and waiting for her own form, so she must have heard our discussion. A few seconds later, she followed us out the car park and called out, "Excuse me, did I hear that you're giving away a console?" Yeah, well, we were going to, but we got a bit mixed up. So, this was very long and drawn out. You don't need it anymore? Nah, but we're booked in for tomorrow, so it will be okay. Well, why don't you give it to me? I could give it to my son for Christmas. Oh, sorry, but we wanted to give it to the hospital. Do some good, you know? Are you saying this wouldn't be doing good? She raised her voice out of nowhere, no idea what I said to offend her. We've had a horrible year, and this would be amazing for my son. At this point, my fiance steps in to help. Lots of people have had a bad year. We just feel that the hospital is the best place for it. Why? I'm in need too. It isn't fair to give everything to those kids. My son has been good all year and he deserves it more. It's not a competition. We're giving it to the hospital. You're so rude. You should give things to people who need them. If they're in hospital, they don't need games. That's a stupid idea. Sorry, like he said, we're booked in for tomorrow. We're going to get our bus now. At this point, my fiance helped usher me away from her. I'm not great with confrontation, and she kept calling out to us as we left about how her son was more deserving than the kids in the hospital, how it was rude of us to ignore her. It was pretty awful. And we did go back the next day to very grateful nurses, so it is a happy ending. Merry Christmas, everyone reading. Wow, imagine being that selfish to actually say, seriously, that your kid, who is not in hospital and is probably, absolutely fine, yes, he's had a bad year, but everyone has, it's been 2020, is more deserving of a gift than kids that have been in hospital. It's absolutely mad to me. Weird, just really, really strange how you can be that selfish. I don't get it. Why was she actually there in the first place is another question I've got. Why was this Karen queuing? Because if it was a queue to, give in things like donate to kids in need, then was she donating? Or was she literally just going there to fiend and prey on people like you, OP, you and your partner, who were giving stuff away and say, actually, my son is more deserving than the kids in the hospital who have illnesses? Really? If that is actually what she was doing, and the more I think about it, the more I think that she must have been, because clearly she wouldn't have been donating anything, right? She's not that sort of person. She's so selfish. Was she really preying on people that were donating to kids? Unbelievable stuff. Wow. I mean, this entitled parent has to be the lowest of the low to me. It doesn't get much worse than trying to steal gifts that are meant to be donated to kids that are in hospital. Unfathomable. Let's move on. Now moving on to our next post. Entitled aunt tries to steal my birthday presents. I have an entitled aunt who is so evil and toxic, it's unbelievable. I joined Reddit just so I can share her antics. I'm in my 40s, a man, so I've got over 3 decades of crazy selfish antics to share, like ruining weddings, ruining holidays, telling kids they're adopted, breaking up relationships, racism, getting people sacked demanding money, you can't earn more money than her kids, selling stuff that ain't hers, and of course, lying with almost every breath. The list goes on. I'll start with one of my earliest memories of her entitled behaviour. First, some light backstory. My aunt, the entitled aunt, is the eldest, let's call her Ruth, of 5 kids. My second aunt, who is slightly entitled but manageable, my dad, and 2 brothers. Except my youngest uncle, Kev, the rest worship my entitled aunt. They believe anything that comes out of Ruth's mouth. Or they did, until one by one they were on the receiving end of her BS. My entitled aunt has 5 kids. She does not discipline her kids. They are all entitled brats, the sort of kids who constantly fight and shout, cause problems wherever they go, plus the lying and stealing, roughly similar ages to me. It's the early 90s. It's my 10th birthday, I think. I grew up kinda poor, and I knew my youngest uncle got me a Super Nintendo. This was a huge deal for me. My first games console. I was beyond excited. There was a party at mine on Saturday morning. I opened the door for my entitled aunt and her broods around 10 AM. Her kids came crashing in, pushing me out of the way as I chatted to my aunt. My lovely cousins went into the living room and started unwrapping my birthday presents. I protested to my entitled aunt, but she just said her kids were helping me, and how kind her kids are by helping me unwrap. I remember her telling me to get a broom. I then remember watching my cousins ripping the box of my Super Nintendo and fighting over how to set it up. These animals were fighting, pulling each other's hair, biting one another. I was that skinny, quiet, nerdy kid with glasses, so I just kept my distance. My mum then shows her face and shouts, asking why the presents have been opened before the other guests have arrived, especially my youngest uncle who was bringing a camcorder. My entitled aunt told my mum I just went crazy with excitement and ripped everything. Also, that I hit one of her kids and he was wailing in the corner. Obviously, my mum knows how I behave, but my entitled aunt is a master manipulator and told my mum I go crazy and show off in front of my cousins. I tried to tell my mum the truth, but my aunt cut in with, "Let's call your dad about your lying." Even at that age, I knew my dad would believe my entitled aunt. So I was put on timeout by my mum because my aunt suggested it. I sat in the corner silently crying whilst watching my cousins fight over my presents. I remember my entitled aunt telling my dad what a rude host I was, how I was hitting my cousins and not listening. To my horror, my dad tells me to face the wall and that he didn't raise me like that. My Uncle Kev turns up about 20 minutes later and goes ballistic as to why I'm on timeout on my own birthday. I loved my youngest uncle. There's a reason why he's my favourite. He was cool. He was about 20. He had tattoos. He gave no Fs. And best of all, even my entitled aunt knew not to cross him. I remember Kev handing out backhands to my spoilt cousins to get them to stop fighting and shut up. I remember his hug and him sitting down and playing Mario with me. The best 10 minutes of my birthday. That 10 minutes made up for the rest of that rubbish on that day. Uncle Kev had to leave soon, and things then went trashy once again. I had the control pad ripped from my hand not long after, so I pretty much just sat and watched. The adults were in the other room most of the day, and my entitled aunt would come to watch us like a hawk every now and then. Obviously, she would always ask me to do something like, "Go get cousin 2 a drink," or "Cousin 3 can't find your bike, go get it for him." Also stuff like, "What moisturizer does your mum use? What does she put in her hair? How much was that dress?" etc. This bit may not have happened on this day, but my entitled aunt would always ask me questions about my mum's products and other similar stuff that I had no idea about or understood, obviously. About an hour later, my entitled aunt announced it's time to leave. I see my 12-year-old cousin packing away the games console and holding it like it was his. I heard him ask his mum if he could take it. I tried to take it from him, but I had no chance. I told my entitled aunt he's taking my game, but she tells me that my dear cousin is only borrowing it and that I was such a bad host and how her children got slapped because of my lies. I ran and told my mum, then I ran to the front door to stop anyone from leaving till I got my game back. My mum came to the rescue this time. She just calmly took the snares from my aunt, who had it tucked under her arm by this point. I should add, my cousins break things almost instantly. They'd already broken their Sega. My entitled aunt was saying how I said my cousins could borrow it, how she didn't even see me play the dang thing, and it was obvious that I didn't like it. That Uncle Kev got it for all his nephews to share. Blah blah blah. I see my dad coming and I just grabbed the box from my mum, ran to my room and hid it. I can't even remember the rest of the day, but I do remember my dad later telling me off for getting my cousins into trouble and how rude I was to my aunt. That's one of my earliest memories of my aunt's antics. I should add that this event won't even make it into her top 30 worst antics. Fast forward 30 years, and everyone's kind of sick of my entitled aunt at this point, including my dad. Everyone though, except her kids. We are all civil, but we keep our distance. I'll be sure to write more about Crazy Ruth. My blood is boiling just thinking about the things she said and done over the years. Oh my god, guys, what a truly horrible person your entitled aunt is, OP. It's not even the way that she's horrible towards you. For me, what's worse is the way that she manipulates your dad into believing her instead of you, his child. I mean, it makes sense, right? At this time, it's clear that your dad had a lot of respect for his sibling, and therefore she's just playing on that, knowing that her brother, your dad, is obviously going to side with her over you because, that's just the way things are at that point in your respective lives. I feel like now, though, it's pretty clear that your dad has actually learned over the years that this woman, his sister, is just a horrible person. And probably as you've got older, he's learned to trust what you're saying a lot more and realized that over all these years, you were in fact telling the truth the entire time, OP. He probably actually massively regrets not listening to you properly back in the day. For example, on this day, on your 10th birthday back in the 90s. Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible one, but, those sort of manipulative people, they have a way with people, They can be really nice and friendly to people's faces and then get what they want behind their back, thus manipulating the people into believing what they've got to say. It's horrible, but it's quite clever in a way. If you are that manipulative and you can use it to your advantage to get what you want, it's horrible, but it is quite clever, I've got to say. Doesn't take away from the fact that this entitled mum is absolutely toxic though, and I despise her with every bone in my lovely body. Anyway guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Entitled Parents. I really hope you did enjoy it. If you did, drop a like on the video. Let's try and hit 5,000 likes. I never really set like goals, so yeah, hit that and I'll be really happy. It will make my Christmas. Also, if you are new around here and you want more right away, check out this playlist of all my Entitled Parents videos. Subscribe if you haven't done already, and if you would like some merch, that is down here as well. Alright guys, see you later on with a brand new upload.